to the Lawyer Life Podcast, where we seek to navigate our days with a little less stress and ideally a lot more fulfillment. On today's episode, we check in with each other, discuss what's helped during these times, and discuss what's coming up next. I'm Mike Anderson.
And I'm Darlene Tonelli.
Hello, Darlene. Darlene,
Hello.
It's you.
It is.
My long-lost podcasting partner.
I know. It feels like it's been a while. Hasn't been that long, though. A couple weeks.
A couple of weeks. We finished the last short season. And then, I think many people can forgive us, perhaps, for needing to take a bit of a pause because of these times, as we say.
Yeah, we're doing our maximum amount of podcasting among other things, which is, a favorite saying of mine.
That's the name of your firm association, whatever you call ourselves.
That's correct. Yes. But we've had really good feedback on our short season about starting a new thing. And interesting, some of the feedback has come from people who are very firmly in an established thing. And I think that, and not perhaps considering starting their own thing seriously, but I found that people's feedback was, this was helpful. This gave me some, understanding of what it's about to consider.
I think as well, it's not like you have to run out and start your own business to learn from or draw from some of the principles, right? Like it could be that you're an in-house counsel and you're like, you know what, I've always wanted to implement, a more innovative way to do X. And I think a lot of those lessons are applicable to that sort of situation, or also like just kind of channeling how you lawyer, in a way that would be more efficient and fits your strengths and can ultimately become more fulfilling.
Yeah. I mean, when I did a webinar recently and I was talking about how in-house, certainly you can sometimes just be facing inertia at the company when you say, look, I could do a much better job if we could do an upfront investment in some workflow rejigging, and I could be faster and we could improve the pipeline. And when legal is a cost center, sometimes those requests just aren't prioritized for whatever reason. And so in my webinar, I was saying that during the pandemic, it's created kind of an excuse, if nothing else, or a reason to bring it to the top of the pile, right? That stuff's things that we've always wanted to do, but haven't had the support. So now I think is an opportunity, if you look on the bright side.
Yes.
Which we try to do.
And speaking of looking on the bright side and opportunities, we've talked a few times about what is helping us cope. I guess at one level, cope, maybe ideally perform at a high level, despite all the challenges that have faced us and all others during the pandemic. So we thought that it might be helpful to check in. Again, I want to learn about, Darlene, what's working for you. Maybe I can glean some tips that I can incorporate into my world, and perhaps you from me, and listener from both of us, ideally, because this is a podcast that people listen to.
It would be sad if you leave and you think, I got no tips.
Love tips.
Not even one tip there. Nothing that I related to.
There's very little I love more than leaving something with a tip I can use. Love it.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. And right now it's really just consolidating and flowing with these things. I find that things that I was doing at the beginning of the pandemic were helpful for that time. They don't work now, or so there's been a real flow. But tell me about what's your routine? I know you're big on routine. So what are you doing to get through?
So ideal morning, like if everything works as I want it to?
Just what is the thing that makes Mike Anderson tick these days?
Well, I can say this. I know I can feel how different my entire day goes if I don't have a kind of intense physical activity. Mainly I'm finding that's what I really need now. But I think it's so basically I've just found this great 25 minute weight-free in-home workout routine that I just do almost daily, which is the way I start my morning, and things flow from that in a routinized way that sets me up for when I sit at my desk. I'm like, okay, I'm ready. I feel at ease, and I can like dive into the work without feel like I'm being pulled in a different way or feeling like I'm just not ready. Like it really kind of sets me up. But there's some mornings where that's not possible. That doesn't happen. And I think I tend to feel more scattered or I'm kind of fighting the day a little bit more if I don't do that.
Right. Cuts down the noise too, right out of the beginning, right out of the gate, don't you find, with exercise in the morning?
Yeah. It's funny that you mentioned that exact phrase. I think that, a couple episodes ago, my good was silence. And I've, been trying to gather more about how our brains do in these types of times of uncertainty. And you probably have thoughts on this, but building that mental reserve to be able to deal with these with uncertainty and difficult times and keep focus. I feel like so much of it is actually contingent on having silence in your life, like and silence in your mind. I was it was last week, my daughter and I did a spa night, which was fun, and we had avocado on our face and that stuff. But there was a moment where we put the cucumbers on the eyes and we were lying down, and I was trying to walk her through kind of like a meditation, guided meditation, to the extent I can do that, which that was my first attempt to do it for someone else. But I did wind up, I think the thing that made more sense to her and really clicked with me is I talked to her about cleaning out your mind and just kind of resetting your brain. And so allowing yourself to, just clear everything that's kind of in your mind for the day and whatever. And I was like, yeah, everyone needs that. Everyone needs to be able to do that, I think, to deal with all the challenges that arise during these times, whether they be health related, family related, work related, or just personal issues. Yeah.
Wow.
So that's a bit of a ramble, I guess.
But you're having spa nights. I mean, I think that's great.
It was also
really a wonderful thing.
It was a great way to fill 45 minutes.
Oh, man. Yes. The eye on the clock.
I recommended everybody. She decided on what she wanted to do. We made sure we had the supplies. We made the masks together. We did a foot bath, which was really easy to do. We had robes on, cut some cucumbers, had some ice water, put on some music. And that was
fantastic.
It. Yeah.
That's so fun. And she'll probably remember that too. That's one of those things that sticks out, I think, for kids.
Yeah.
Things like that.
Yeah, it was fun.
Because they know it's out of the ordinary for you. They get a feel, I think.
No, actually,
unless you tell me otherwise.
I do that
this
routinely.
Is a thing?
Actually, I had it already because it's just something I spend probably about 4 hours every afternoon doing that. Things are hard right now.
The cucumbers in particular.
The days I only get 2 hours in of my spa time I really feel it,
Right. The secret's out. That's what it is.
Sorry, Darlene, I'm busy.
It's I can't do that file. I'm otherwise engaged.
Yeah.
I have a funny thing on that topic of the time passing as parents right now. So my husband and I are always very aware of how many hours there are in a long day of weekend in particular. The weekends feel long now.
They do.
I find.
I have a theory on that too, but you continue and then I'll come.
Yes, I would love to hear it. So at the beginning of the pandemic, I mean, we used to spend our weekends going to various play parks and it was just go, keep people engaged. And we had this thought that the kids need to they need to have an activity all the time, a birthday party, or like we were always on the go on the weekends. And since the pandemic has happened, obviously that's different. And recently, last weekend, we just drove out to the country and walked in a field, like literally a field. It was kind of a path, but out by Guelph. And we had a great time, like a really great time. And we got back in the car and we were like, that was so fun. And my husband noted, he's like, and 3 or 4 hours. I'm like, I know, we killed 3 or 4 hours. And things in our standards have shifted so much that at the beginning of the pandemic, we thought we had to go and do a thing. And now we were literally walking around a field and being like, this is so fun.
Yeah.
For us, it was a real marker of how, I don't know, Like your standards just change.
But doesn't all this align? Like, I feel like it all aligns. We're being
Yes, it does.
forced to actually deal with ourselves in our brains or as a family unit, right? Like the distraction of gymnastics and getting there and all that, kind of just allowed us to not have to do that stuff, right? And now we're just like we are with ourselves, also with our families. We're just like, okay, like we got to sit here with with each other, and if there is a way that we can actually find something where we're all kind of in flow, that's a great experience, right? And so silver linings, blah, blah, blah. But there's something to that.
Well, sort of. And then big picture, right? Like I'm picturing other families doing kind of low key things. There's sort of like it's not just, it's like feeling a part of a bigger group of people that are all doing kind of less exciting things. And it's sort of the same. My son was very, very interested in that Suez Canal boat. Like, so we talked an intense number of those hours about this boat. How are they going to get it out? Can we watch on YouTube and see if they've got the boat out? Like, it was a big deal. And so I was forced to think about it. And I kept just kind of having this thought like, the whole world is focused on like turning this ship.
Yeah.
Like there was some sort of something very, I don't know, powerful about
also
that.
Metaphorical because
like we're trying to turn this frickin' ship.
Yeah.
And there's all this big picture stuff happening where, some people don't want to get vaccinated and don't want to wear masks because, that's a problem for me. And like, isn't this just the essential challenge? Right? And then we're all working on the boat. And anyway, deep things happening. But on that note, that's why you need the things like you're describing, the daily routine to just process. I think just processing all the stuff that's in the air is necessary. Then there's regular life,
I think the advantage as well is like there is just such a lack of control that we all have on major parts of our lives that and I think this is like helpful for your brain. I mean, to the extent you can control some things, some predictable things, provide yourself structure, predictability, that it will feed your brain and your mind in a helpful way. And I know that one of the things that I have found really useful, speaking of metaphors and symbols, is so this workout routine that I've done routinely, it's 20 minutes a day. It's not like I'm driving in the gym and doing an hour-long class and walking out, covered in sweat and whatever. It's just 20 minutes in my office on a mat, right? But I'm seeing probably the best results I've ever seen from doing that. And that's just been a really interesting lesson for me because as we've talked about as well, like the mental game, is the same. You can't just all of a sudden go from 0 to 100 when it comes to meditation or mindfulness or these other things that are helpful. But, little efforts every day can build into something that, can get you somewhere where you weren't before. And so this kind of physical manifestation of that has also been a reminder to me of, I got to keep up on the mental side because I could wind up in a similar place if I spend a similar amount of time and dedication on that as I do to the physical side.
Routine, discipline, freedom, as Rachel Shipper said.
Yeah.
Right? The routine is huge. I think there's a big, big component to just having a routine. I think that's absolutely right.
And that's why the weekends, I think, feel long with kids because you have such a lack of control. I mean, I don't get that time in the morning, with the kids. It's just, we're up at, 6 and it's a literal go time until the bed hits 7. The pillow. Yeah. And, that's just a reality. I don't know if anybody has a fix for that. I mean, at Laura Live Pod on Twitter, let us know. We'll be a guest. We'll feature you. We'll do anything. Someone
give us the fix. Yeah, the parenting is heavy on the mind right at the moment because here our schools have just closed again with sort of an overnight notice, and it just creates a level of chaos that I don't love in my life generally. But to your point earlier, you just have to roll with it. You just have to kind of, or I do. I don't know how other people are doing it, but I just kind of have this thought of like, okay, one foot in front of the other. You have two choices. I can and I did fall in a little bit the other day of reading the news and sort of, I know I'm not in my best headspace when I'm kind of like, why aren't they doing this? And this is the...
Wait for my gripe. Oh, boy.
Okay, well, we'll just save that for the gripe then. When I get gripey at all, I know something is wrong in my mental...
Well, it's good of you to notice it, and it's important that when we have feelings that we vocalize them.
We gripe about them.
It actually is helpful and gets us out of that. If you're anxious and you say, I'm feeling anxious, your brain is actually moving away from the part of your brain that feels anxious to the part that processes and deals with and can move away from anxiety. So by griping, in a way, we're moving on from our gripes and not stewing on them.
Right. And I think the accountability too, just sort of saying, okay, what would I say if one of you guys said to me, I'm feeling anxious? I'd be like, get outside, take a minute, put your pen down and don't try to power through. And I think for lawyers in particular, I have a long history of just trying to power through it. And then you do power through it. It happens. But you still, I think the effect still happens, delayed or something.
Or amplified,
you know what I mean?
Yeah. And I think the hard thing is that we don't really have, in a economy for lawyers, it's still based on time spent, usually you might not have that time or flexibility in your role to hop out and go for a run. I think things are improving, but it's still a problem for the profession.
I need to be clear that it was a 6-minute run.
Is that a run? Isn't that a sprint? Did you go for a sprint, Darlene?
No, my running is very short and abbreviated, but even that 6-minute, it's kind of like what you were saying about the 20-minute workout. It's not the time spent. Like I'm no running hero. It's the put on the shoes, take an action of self-care or self-preservation or whatever the term is that you'd like to use, and go, and then you just do it. Anyway, that's been a little tiny thing that I've been doing. But the music has been huge for me.
Okay.
The last couple of months. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Tell me about that.
Well, it's interesting. A fellow lawyer reached out to me and said, you talk about making mixtapes. Like, can you make me a playlist? And I was like, yeah. This is the best request ever. Just trying to get out of the algorithm a bit in some of these music services and just kind of remember my own things that I like and put them on a list. So a bit old school, right? Is this a thing old people do from your perspective?
No, I'm constantly making a playlist.
Okay, good. Music has been very important. And to your silence point, I find on my walk, there was a point in the pandemic when I was doing a lot of talking on the phone on my walks. And then there came a point where I was like, okay, no more talking. I'm just going to listen to music on this walk. And that's been very peaceful for me and connecting to something from, I don't know, like a different time or, I don't know, not really listening to new music on those walks.
Yeah. I think also it goes to letting your brain focus on one single thing. That isn't like when I listen to a podcast, I'm engaging with that content, but then I'm also kind of processing it and, putting it into my own life and blah, 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 blah. Yesterday, I just sat for 3.5 minutes, sat at my desk, listened to a song. And I was like, I'm just going to sit here and listen to this whole song.
Yeah.
And it's helpful to get to what we've been talking about this whole time of just like letting your brain simplify, focus on one thing, clean itself out a little bit so you can then go on with the multiple challenges that we all face. So this is good. I think we covered a lot there. We
covered a lot. I have one other thing that I would say might be helpful for people. A thing that I do is I sometimes just we have a lot of self-help style, spiritual, all kinds of different books around here, which probably listeners of the pod know. And every now and then I will just go pick one off the shelf and just flip it open and see what it's got in there. And today I flipped open a book, and it's by Marianne Williamson. It's a book called The Gift of Change, which has been very influential in my life. And, I pull it out when it's like, okay, it's a bit, that's enough change for the moment. I try to roll with change, and generally I'm fine with it, but, there's a lot right now. So she had a good quote that just jumped off the page. I'm going to share it on the pod for people in case it's helpful. She said, and this is helpful to me because I have been thinking a bit more negatively about the government's response to COVID and all this stuff. So she says, at times I've caught myself saying negative things I don't even believe, giving in to a kind of mental self-indulgence that is the enemy of happiness. And I thought that was a really great quote from that book, because it's like, if you spend half your day focusing on what's wrong, it's going to feel bad. Like, there's just no two ways about it. It's like, yep, we could all sit around and talk about how much better this can be. I'm a huge offender of this sometimes, especially with political stuff. And I find that on the days where I'm like, yeah, but you know what's really great is these 5 things.
Yep.
And like forcing my brain to like make the turn, focus on the gratitude is just the thing. And it gets harder the more negativity, the more challenges, the less bandwidth. But that's the most, like, we're practicing basically in regular life to do it in the really hard times. So,
That's it.
and we're super privileged in the scheme of things. And I find that, a daily kind of reminder to myself about that is necessary, big time.
Yep.
Got to keep your energy high, because if we drop it, then yikes.
Yeah. Mark Sakamoto, probably like 2 years ago from when we interviewed him.
Yeah.
You're either spiraling up or you're spiraling down.
There is no standing still. No. Someone else said that. And I have really taken both those comments to heart. Like, you're either moving forwards or you're moving backwards, or you're, like you aren't just in stasis, or however you say that word. Anyway. Yeah. So that's what's going on. Well, good that your routines are helping you. And I always like hearing, I definitely don't think anyone that I've spoken to through the course of the pandemic has been like, yeah, I'm doing the exact same thing all the time. I don't hear anybody doing that. I think we're all changing it up.
Yeah, it definitely feels like it's maybe not in monthly chunks, but it definitely has changed. And even thinking back about past episodes and what I talked about, I was doing then, it's like, wow, I can't believe I was able to pull that off for that period of time. And just your capacity changes. But, always looking to improve to the extent we can, or, ultimately this is just about dealing with the difficulties that are in front of us. So thanks for those tips in that chat, Darlene. As always, we will return with our goods and our gripes. The Lawyer Life podcast is brought to you by Inter Alia Law. Inter Alia lawyers have big firm training, in-house experience, and a wide range of expertise in technology, media, and entertainment. Our advice is business-focused, speedy, and practical. To learn more, visit interalialaw.com. That's INTERALIA-law.com. And we are back with our goods and gripes. Goods are things we want to promote and support, and gripes are things that annoy us. Okay.
I can go first. I have a good.
Okay.
I've been having a lot of trouble finding podcasts that I feel like listening to. I don't know if this is just me, or anyway, recommendations would be good. But one that I've been listening to is, I don't even know if I've talked about it on this podcast before, but I'm pretty obsessed with the Thai cave rescue.
They're making a movie about that, eh?
They're making a movie. There's a podcast. There's going to be a book by one of the guys that was a rescuer. And I don't know. Have I talked about this on the pod before?
No.
Oh, my God. Okay, so I'm claustrophobic, a lifelong claustrophobic person. And in my travels in Southeast Asia, when my law school roommates and I both finished out the 3 of us finished out our 3rd year in Singapore. And we did a ton of traveling through the whole region. And we had these experiences where the big thing to do in Thailand is like go in caves. And I was like, you guys, literally, this is my nightmare. Like, this is not my thing. I do not go into caves. And they would, and it was great. And they were like, oh, don't worry, the tides won't come in. Everything's fine. I'm like, okay, I'll be in the boat. You all enjoy your caves. So I had a pre-existing relationship with Thai caves. And I just think it's so interesting that these boys, the whole world's attention was on them in this cave, and we were all rooting for them to get out. And it was really a miracle, that rescue, like a true miracle to have 13 kids come out of there in those circumstances. And yeah, I think about it a lot. I've read everything about it. I've read every article, I think, that's been written on it. Ron Howard is going to direct the movie. So anyway, I think that if anyone hasn't been voraciously following this Thai cave rescue story, it is just an interesting one. So Against the Odds, it's a Wondery podcast, 6 episodes short and helpful. I mean, interesting to listen to.
Okay.
How about you? Do you have a good?
I do. So just on the note of things that have been helpful, number one, I just want to say, so the workout that I've done is this guy named Connor Sloan. He has a YouTube channel. It's called Train Like a Warrior. If anybody looking for a workout just with body weight, he has a bunch of resources up there. He's great. And I've benefited greatly from his workout, so I want to call him out. I don't know him. We have a one-way relationship via YouTube. But anyway, thank you, Connor Sloan. The other thing, actually, it's funny you mentioned podcasts because my other good was about podcasts, and it channels into something bigger than that. There's this Toronto-based podcast called Sportsfeld. I don't know if I've mentioned it before.
I don't think so.
Two guys that used to work in sports media. One actually is a actor that used to be on Degrassi. It's just like, it's called Sportsfeld because it's about sports, but it's kind of not, it's a sports podcast about nothing, which I think is clever. They've done it for a number of years, but they end every episode, and they have done for all those years. I think it's like 7-8 years. Every episode, their final segment, instead of Goods and Gripes, is called Sad or Not Sad. And they talk very openly about their mental health, things they're going through in their life. And I think it's just really beneficial, especially in the context of sports media, to have that conversation. And in these times, guys don't often outwardly channel their feelings, especially that openly. So I think they just set a great example. And on that note, this is going to be a couple days outdated by the time we post it, but last night the Toronto Maple Leafs goalie Jack Campbell basically cried on television because he's doing really well, but he had a tough go to get to where he is. And I just think that the more that's modeled by people like professional athletes or people that speak about sports, for guys, especially younger guys, I think that is a good thing. So that is my good, especially in the context of these times.
I love it. Yep. Needs to happen. It goes against the whole toxic masculinity thing and all that.
Too. Yeah. And it's also like it's about sports, but they also acknowledge privilege. Like it's a new version of sports talk, which I think is necessary because that is a minefield of problems otherwise. Good. Okay. Gripes?
Gripe?
Yeah.
Oh, me? First?
Sure.
I would say a gripe that I've come kind of face to face with through this pandemic time is just the pressure we put on our kids to excel at everything. And it's been really interesting. I think that's generally just a gripe. Just this idea that if your kid's not Olympic level by age 8, all is lost. And I don't know if that's just a group of people that I move in or what the issue is, but I do think there's an inordinate amount of pressure on a lot of kids. And I noticed it yesterday because my son and my daughter and I yesterday were doing a little online music class thing, and my son suggested that we could be a band, the three of us, and gave us each an instrument. He's like, okay, we're a band now. And I'm like, great. And then we started our music, and he's like, what an awful racket. And I'm like, oh, it's just terrible, but also great because we're trying hard. And then we just kind of had fun. And obviously we're not trying to be a band and all that, but I've been trying to really bring home this idea of you're good, you're figuring out who you are and what you're going to do. And I just, the pandemic has brought that more front and center for me. But I think that would be a good in life, I think it might be true that you will excel in the sort of traditional ways if you're hardcore from day one, but I don't know. I think it kind of edges out the kids' ability to just be who they are and for us to see who they are as they go on. Like, we don't know. I don't know what they're supposed to do.
Yeah. It's kind of like a all eggs in one basket approach if you're just expecting your kid to be the best X, and it can have, I think, a lot of negative consequences. But if instead, like, your goal is, I want to raise a child with emotional intelligence, that is a better predictor of success. So if you want, like, the best shot at your kid, having a fulfilling life, something like that would be probably a better investment of your time than horse racing best person or whatever. Whatever.
Yeah, it just always strikes me as like so like just the very idea that I know like the thing for him or her.
Oh yeah, no way.
Is like so intimidating to me. I mean, you know, I think if I see a glimmer of something that's an interest that's authentic, then I'll obviously help them explore it. But my goodness. Anyway, that's been a bit of I don't know if it's a gripe per se, as much as an observation. But anyway, How about you?
I don't want to go off here, but let me just say.
You rarely go off. I'm fine with it. Listeners, we're fine with Mike going off.
Right now.
Vent and then take action.
Yeah. Right now, I understand that those who lead our governments have been working for a long time on trying to get stuff right. My gripe is just get the easy stuff right. Like, just please, because right now we're all obviously, our lives are so affected by what our leaders do. I think at this point, the problem is we're all fatigued. And when you're fatigued, you aren't your best self. And it's quite easy to get into that negative spiral that you mentioned before when you look at some decisions that are made and just be like, what is happening? Like, this just is a mess. And it's hard to continue to have faith in the decisions that are being made and comply and so on when the easy, low-hanging fruit seems to be problematic. So that's my gripe. Is just like I want us all to get through this as best we can, and it's frustrating to see obstacles set for people that shouldn't be there. I don't know if I'm being clear. I'm trying to speak in summary and vaguely, I guess. So I don't.
What you're pointing out too, like do the easy stuff, I think would be so much easier if there was a real almost diversity of thought in our government in a way that there isn't right now. Like, there just isn't. Are there enough people whose family have nine multi-generational people, some of whom are working outside the workforce and living in an apartment together? Are they in the government? Mm-hmm. Because I think that just the lack of empathy or understanding of what it is, even for small business owners, to like open and shut, open and shut, open and shut, buy plexiglass, put plexiglass away. Like, these are big things. And I think they understand it in the abstract, but I always find that even in law, the better I understand the experience of my clients, the better I can give advice. So I think, it's vent-worthy, but the thing that I've been taking from it as I try to take my vent and make it positive is, it's a real demonstration of why we need to be so focused on getting different perspectives into power, Mm-hmm. Well, I would like to say, I think that's the first time you brought up a true Venn political gripe, and I support us talking about more politics.
I mean, it's the thing that's just staring us all in the face.
It is. Like, it would be weird to not have a small gripe and then try to use our tools on it and make it not the enemy of our happiness.
Yeah, I'm going to go back to my routinized control in the spaces of my home. I can control what's in this home.
I can control what's in front of you.
Not really.
Ish. Yeah. Except when the toddler walks through and then it's like, oh man, no control. We can wrap up there. I've had a double gripe. Yep. You've had a political gripe. All good. It was really nice to podcast again, and we're going to get back on our regularly scheduled season starting shortly.
Yeah. Okay.
That's a plan.
Well, until then, we will talk soon.
Talk soon.
That's it for this week's episode of LLP. Thanks to Inter Alia Law for presenting the podcast, and to Nick Fowler for composing and performing our music. See our show notes for his website. Don't forget, we love feedback. Please comment in the review section, or subscribe, or like. We'd appreciate it greatly. That's it. Talk soon.